wishbone. I'll look
Yeah,
at
they
that.
sure are.
They
aren't
are.
Hmm.
But we got the best other stuff, you know.
No, like I said, I.
Yeah, be sure, Elvie, when you go there, to order other stuff.
Yeah. No, I mean, try our steak with lobster chunks on the top of it, and it's not $35.
I will definitely check it out. I just don't eat out a lot.
I don't either. I know that sounds funny,
No,
but
I'm for it. I just don't eat out a lot. But I'll definitely check it out, you know.
you should try it. Just if nothing else, walk through and take a look at
I'm
it.
going to.
It's beautiful.
I would definitely have lunch or something there.
We have big, beautiful salads. I mean, the reason I can't say what we have is,
Yeah, that's why I texted you.
really, we probably have 30 entrees there. I mean,
Oh, I see.
we kind of cover everything.
I thought-
Our quesadillas are probably as good as anywhere in town. Our pot stickers, Chinese, I mean, we've got just a little bit of everything.
You can get this all on the TV.
Barbecue.
Oh, hey, Harry, how are you?
Looks like we can get started here.
Good.
We've got a quorum.
You know, Ernie Hall.
I want to apologize.
Nice seeing you again. Good to see you.
Thanks, Ernie. Yeah, all right.
I'm not sure about the status of Chief Bashu, send him a
No, I know, I
message
should
to
remind him,
remind
but
him.
Casual dining.
Chief Hughes should be here in a moment.
Yeah, you've done enough selling today.
We're gonna go ahead and go on record,
I can't believe you-
12:09 PM, and I'm sorry for the delay, but I hope you understand we've got weather concerns that we have to accommodate. I also want to initially start out with, please get this agenda as presented in front of you. It was a template that was used, I don't know how, my mistake. The template, the placeholders though are still in fact effective. Under Health and Human Services, if you want to go ahead and scratch that one off in particular, we thought we would get, good afternoon, Chief. We thought we would have a discussion briefly on where we go next on fluoride, and I will just inform the body and those that may be interested. Currently, the municipal attorney is looking at the legality of the fluoride that we're using, the type of fluoride that we put in our system. We want to make sure there's no case laws in the recent 3 to 4 years that would preclude the municipality or put the municipality liability by using the last 20 years. And I don't think it has, but, and then as soon as we get that, I did just wanted to check. And I've been assured that, Mr. Wheeler said that it might be after the first year before we can have an answer. So I intend by January's meeting, we should have, an answer and perhaps whether it's one direction or another. I don't intend to at this point enter this new ordinance changes.
How you been?
To move forward, but if there's information that says we should increase liability or concern, we will. So stand by on fluoride. Chief, is there any place you need to be here?
I was gonna squeeze out here and by 12:30, that's all.
Okay, so if you don't mind, Mr. Coffey, can I have,
Oh.
Chief, will you be able to, we've got a presentation and I know they got here or whatever.
Yep.
So we're at the Office of Emergency Management.
Office of Emergency Management, I have nothing new to report at this time. We're still working towards, of course, all our 2013 plans will be working towards the 2014 Alaska Shield exercise. Brown bag lunches will continue in 2013, focusing again on personal responsibility and preparedness. Other than that, we're kind of going to a lull of the holiday season, so we won't be doing any brown bags between now and the end of the year. That's about all we have to report.
How about weather monitoring?
Yeah, we've been working closely with, in fact, a couple things about that. We're working closely with the National Weather Service, and we're looking also at a new emergency alert service system that the state has just purchased, and we're trying to see if we can piggyback off of them, because our system's kind of old and antiquated. And we had a meeting just recently with the local broadcasters, and they're all ready to go onto the new system. So, and the public won't see any difference. It'll still be the, the beep across the bottom of the screen and all that. The only difference is it'll be more modernized, where we can do it at any location. I can get on a computer, put in an alert status at any time. So it's a lot better than what we have now, which is going into the office, getting on the old teletype type system. And going forward. So that's about it. What we got going.
Very good.
actually been pretty good. We're averaging around, they moved them over here quite a bit, but we've still averaging about 25 to 30 people. So,
Did it increase after?
about 10 of the people are the same people every time.
Did it increase after the year?
Yeah, that always seems to boost us for, it's a great selling point.
Grant funding for the next year, everything seems to be pretty much.
Yeah, we're working towards all our grants. Again, with Alaska Shield 2014 in mind, we'll be working closely with several departments on probably the EMPG grant to help us pay for any exercise costs. We're working closely with the fire department, police department on what they desire in the 2014 exercise. We'll be working on that.
And the last question, I have is emergency watch is still up and going, and is that a product of Citizen Corps money, or is that?
Citizen Corps money never really paid for emergency watch. Emergency watch was kind of it is a totally different animal. It's through a different grant, but it is still up and going, and we still have meetings with community organizers, so that's still working positively. I can't tell you the count, but Dawn Brantley is the lead on that. She's done a great job. We've really increased the number in the last couple of years. I think we had let's say 35 or 40 groups signed up now.
That's for you guys, participating emergency watch is a great way to contact the neighbors, know who's shut in, an elderly or someone disabled, and it's not quite a neighborhood watch, but it kind of dovetails with it. In fact, I know there's a lot of partner that's
It's neighborhoods take care of neighborhoods, basically, so we don't have to worry about them.
Thank you so much. At this time, Chief, unless you have to be somewhere real quick, is it possible we can copy and Mr.
I've got time.
I
I was late getting here, but I don't want to have anything else.
Maybe you want to take a few minutes and let the snow kind of fall around and settle in. Pretty harsh.
You got time, I'm scared.
Mr. Coffey,
Thank you.
I know that you'd asked if we could schedule on the agenda. Just so you know, last month we had, I think there were 3 other potential persons who wanted to use that location. They came and spoke before this committee, laid out some plans, and only fair that we, of course, hear your presentation. So I know you had sent emails to all of us. I did back down.
If I may,
Yes.
which one was that now? There's two gentlemen?
Yes.
What, I actually have that one too.
From our discussions with Basilio Gallo, who is the owner of the license, and Abraham Gallo, who's the owner of the building, we're the only game in town with those 2 guys, okay? And I've spoken to Tom Amodio, who's the attorney for those gentlemen, and he's been getting the emails like you guys have, so he's up to speed. I kind of half expected him to be here today, but I don't know. So here's our situation. On the Friday between Thanksgiving and that long weekend, Mr. Burnett, my client who owns TGI Fridays, was in contact with Mr. Gallo, and they reached an agreement on a purchase and sale of the license, the furniture, fixtures, equipment, and a lease with an option to purchase on the building. On Saturday and Sunday of that week, I got the contract written, gave it to Bruce on Monday. On Tuesday, it was signed, and Bruce and Mr. Gallo were in my office. We got it all signed, and then we started to talk to people, including TGI Fridays and others that can, put a restaurant together. They're all franchises, so he's got to deal with those boys. But what we basically started to do is we made arrangements to go to the Downtown Community Council, and I forward you their resolution. And we're scheduled tomorrow in front of the Downtown Partnership. And Bruce went out on the streets the other day, and I got it last night, a little late to give it to you, but he's got signatures right now from 7 downtown businesses and property owners saying once they get the understanding of what's being proposed, then they're fine with what's being proposed. So what's being proposed? Basically what we're saying to you is you have a right of protest. You know that. There's 2 ways to do it under Title II of the City Code, and a resolution of 3 of you can do that, and when the license renewal is before you, which it is not today. I checked again, they have not yet filed their renewal papers. I asked Mr. Amodio to please get that done ASAP. You can protest renewal. If the protest is viewed by the ABC board, the standard they use is the protest arbitrary, capricious, and unreasonable? In other words, does it not have a solid basis in fact? I haven't looked at all the NOVs from this operation, but it's not. I mean, I wouldn't want to try to defend it in front of you or the ABC board. And I've done a lot of defending of things before you in the past. So then, so what we're proposing is this, is we would like to appear in front of the full assembly on the 18th of this month with a resolution that says, to the effect of what was in the Downtown Community Council resolution and elsewhere, an immediate closure of Rum Runners, never to reopen, number one. Number two, approval of renewal as a condition of immediate closure with a never to reopen. Number three, assuming we meet the standards for transfer of ownership, you know, the debts are paid, the property taxes are paid, there are no felons, and all of the usual everyday transfer requirements that come with the transfer of ownership, that you would approve us. And then number four, there'd be a modification of the conditional use, which is in existence under Title 21. That modification can be made at the request of Mr. Burnett, and if he gets the license, we will make that request. And it will be that he has to be or operate a business that is a bona fide restaurant. I picked that phrase because it's in Title 21, Title 4 of state law, and they require for a bona fide restaurant a certain level. There's a whole list of things that make it bona fide. In addition to that, their standard, by the way, is 50% food, 50% other things. We're proposing that in the conditional use, it be 75-25, 75 food and 25 alcohol. And really the key thing is no more than 25% of the gross income be alcohol, because they may sell, you know, TGI hats and, you know, trinkets and trash, as we call it. But the limitation on alcohol sales is the key that you get. The Downtown Community Council asked us to make a provision that we would not provide any adult entertainment. That's really not a necessary provision, but it's in the resolution, and we certainly don't plan on doing it, and it wouldn't be a permitted use down in that area of town in any event, and it's certainly nothing Mr. Burnett is interested in. So if we can do that, here's the situation. I spoke at length to Mr. Flynn a week or so ago, just after he left town, sometime, you know, like I say, a week or 10 days ago. And we had a long discussion, and his displeasure is substantial and reasonable. He has every reason not to like what's going on in his district. I don't blame him one bit. If I were there, I would not like it either. And there's a host of things that can be done, but in terms of this license, what he is suggesting is that the license be forfeit, for want of a better word, either protested and not renewed, or he said to me once, sold and the proceeds go to the municipality, so on. That's a $250,000 asset. He paid $250 for it. He's selling it to Mr. Burnett for $250. I gave the contract to the city clerk, and it's we're treating it as a public document, just so everybody knows what the deal is. The problem with that, and this is a perspective that doesn't really affect Mr. Burnett, because if this doesn't go through, he's got a few dollars invested with me, but he's done. He doesn't have to do this, right? Mr. Gallo and Basilio and Abraham Gallo, the cousins, they will be the ones who suffer the loss. But so will the city. I've talked to 3 different realtors. Mr. Burnett's a commercial real estate guy, but I've talked to 2 others, and I said, how long will that old NBA building be vacant if there's, you know, if the license is taken and the building is shut down? And the response I got was either 1 year, 1.5 years, or 1.5 years. One of the things that the people from downtown have told us that they don't want is an empty building on 4th and E. And I don't think that advantages anybody. So Mr. Burnett would be, if he gets this deal and you fellows allow it to occur, fellows and ladies, then he will open May 1st, maybe June 1st, depending on, you know, construction and permits and making it a full-service restaurant. And in time for the tourist season is obviously the goal, because that's when there'll be a whole bunch of folks downtown. We cannot today commit it will be at TGI Fridays because we need to get franchisor approval. But if it's not, it will be something substantially similar. And Bruce characterized it to me as casual dining. And of course, the concerns would be it's not a bar. The concerns are that it doesn't have alcohol as its primary source of income. It's related to a bona fide restaurant. So the assurances would be in the conditional use. And we'll either have, like I said, a TGI Fridays or something substantially like that. And I think overall, that's a best holistic solution for the municipality. Now, here's and I characterized it in the email, I think, as a pound of flesh versus capital punishment. I understand Mr. Flynn's desire to send a message and to sanction, if you would, the owners. But I want to say one thing first. If you look at how both Mr. Gallows operate their other licensed businesses, and La Cabana downtown is an example. There's one that Basilio operates, I forget the name, out in your neck of the woods, and the chairman's district. And Mr. Gallo, of course, Abraham has got his deal in South Anchorage and then one over on C Street. And they don't have any trouble at those places. I think they got into a business they didn't know how to run or manage. They hired the wrong man, who in turn hired the wrong people. When Mr. Schomer was taken out of operations and management, they didn't go deep enough. They should have taken out the people that Mr. Schomer hired as well. And Mr. Flynn's words, the operation went from horrible to merely bad. Well, that's not good enough, and it shouldn't be permitted. That's the pitch. So how do we hold accountable those people who are owners and investors who have good reputations otherwise, who made us a serious, bad judgment, awful bad judgment. Thank you. Imagine somebody giving words to a wordsmith. Anyway, so here's the deal. If he is required to close before year end, he misses New Year's. I don't know what that is. I don't have his books in front of me, but that's a huge night in the bar business. And we get a business closed immediately. He will then be closed forever, and until May 1, is it? You don't pay any rent? Right. May 1, so Mr. Gallo has to continue to pay his mortgage payment, $16,000 a month, January, February, March, April, 4 months of that. So he's lost a very big amount of money in in New Year's, and then 4 months at $16,000 a month, which is $64,000 more dollars. The price of the building, and the reason we made the document, the contract public, is so we could show you what the deal was on our end, and I can tell you that he is buying the building for $50,000 more than what Mr. Abraham Gallo bought it for in 2007. Mr. Gallo, and I've checked this out with contractors and others, Mr. Gallo reportedly put $711,000 in improvements in that business. We are not buying those improvements. So he is going to take a hit in the vicinity of $750,000 to $900,000 by this deal. That is punishment enough. And it's more than enough when you look at the consequences of having empty buildings right smack dab in the middle of downtown, as opposed to a fine dining restaurant. That's our pitch. We'll answer any questions you have. Thank you.
Ray Jackson first.
So you don't anticipate buying the $711,000?
We're not buying it. It's in the contract. Yes, ma'am.
Let me explain that, just please. That's why I'm here. Let me explain this. Well, I'm sure the fire chief would know that Mr. Gallo did lots of things that didn't make sense, okay? Number one, he tried to remodel a space without getting a building permit. Once the city found out that he was doing that, they came in there and made him bring up to code the building that Eddie Rasmussen built in the 50s or 60s.
Elmer,
That's right, not Junior. Okay. Anyway, you put a complete sprinkler system in the building to bring it up to code. He made him put a new, which I think is overkill, but he did. He put a phenomenal HVAC heating and exchange system throughout the building. Those two items alone were around $450,000. In addition, he put a complete new lighting system in, a sound system, which I wouldn't be able to use. I offered to give it to Mr. Gallo, but he said, well, once you take stuff off, it's not worth anything. Don't worry about it. And then in addition, if you went upstairs, he remodeled the restrooms up there that have granite and marble. I mean, they're real. So as Mr. Coffey told you, there isn't any way for him to recapture any of that money. So he's gonna lose somewhere between $750,000 and let's call it $1 million. So I think that's a pretty good slap for him making a bad judgment decision on allowing these people to operate that thing into the ground where we had all the violations that we have in the city. So that's basically, I thought I'd add that in so you know that that money's gone. There's no way for him to recap that.
Well, I would appreciate the detail, and Mr. Coffey mentioned the sale price.
I'm sorry,
Mr. Coffey mentioned the sale price, and I was waiting for a number.
2.4, 2.45?
2.5. Mr. Gallo paid $2,450,000, I was told by Bob, the previous owner.
Right.
And so I agreed to buy it for 2.5. However, I don't have to buy it, I have an option to buy it.
Right.
But I have a 20-year lease to operate it. So anytime during that, from the day one that the liquor license goes through, until, you know, my plan is to buy it. I'm not gonna say that it isn't, but, that's the figures. Okay, that's the exact.
And the
figures.
reason there's no commitment on buying it is we put this thing together in very, very short order. And to spend $2.5 million, he's gonna have to get financing and put a whole bunch of stuff together that never would have happened by this time.
And just one last question. So if you can get the franchise for another TV plant,
Right.
then that's what it's gonna be. If you can get a franchise.
If I can get it under terms and conditions that make sense. I've been dealing with them for several months, and they have a cookie cutter. You know, all these nationals have a cookie cutter. And it used to be 6,500 feet, the downstairs is 6,300. But now their new cookie cutter's 7,000 to 8,000 feet. So I don't know if they'll let me put that in there, but just so you know, I've been a commercial real estate broker in Anchorage for 37 years, and I have several other really nice nationals that the city would love that would probably like to go in there, and if not, I'll put my own concept in there, and it will be run professionally and correctly as the TGI Fridays here I've run for 10 years.
Right, so the bottom line is whether that's going to be TGI, it's going to be a casual dining restaurant
Absolutely,
with 75% food and 20%
Yes.
alcohol.
yeah. Yeah, we've never gone over your nationals, be it, you know, the Lone Star, or Outback, or Fridays, or they rarely go over 18 to 20%, so we should be more than safe at 25.
Not much.
When do you guys envision shutting the bar down, so we don't have the alcohol use?
Right after the 18th, as soon as you, if the resolution passes.
If it passes, then we can tell the public on the 19th to shut down the 20th.
Well,
That's
what
what
I
I
would
did.
say is there's 2 or 3 days to get everybody laid off and, you know, make it, the key is the 1st of January. That's the, you know, December 31, January 1 is the big night, but the sooner the better. Mr. Gallo, you tell him what he said when we explained all this to him.
Right, we didn't want him to think that we're going around him to come up with these resolutions, so I talked to Mr. Gallo, and he says, I understand I'm in a no-win situation, if we have to close it down, then we'll close it down. I'm just trying to make a long discussion simple, and so he's agreed, if the resolution's passed, to close it down. Now, the date, whether it's the 20th, the 23rd, before Christmas, before New Year's, he's not gonna have a problem, but to him, it's a lost cause, he understands, you know, the problems that was created, and so he's agreed to do that verbally.
So Tuesday's the 18th, so I would say, you know, close it, make sure they don't open on Friday or something like that, whatever works best for you guys. For me, the key element was the New Year's, that's where the money is.
I have one more. Can we agree that no casual alcohol will be served there until you take over the TGI Friday? Because what I don't want is some group to come in, get a weekend license.
Oh,
sell
absolutely.
alcohol in there.
No, I would.
Because I mean, there's conditional use on it, but you can't do that.
It's gonna take 90 days more.
I know, I just,
He's talking about a catering permit, and that lies with the chief, and we won't apply. And we get possession immediately. When do we get possession? We get it, it's an immediate thing.
Yeah.
As soon as we know we've got a deal that we can, see, we could walk away today, and all that Bruce would be out would be what he's paid me and his own efforts. So if we get, where we know the license will come with the deal, then we're gonna start our processes of permitting and remodeling and financing and all of those things. So we're going to have possession of the licensed premises within a few days after your action. So we will not apply for any kind of license, catering or otherwise, anything. We won't allow rental, we won't allow any alcohol to be served on the place until we open the restaurant in, hopefully, by the 1st of May. And I can put that, I didn't put that down, but we will. Absolutely.
Because I've seen too many catering licenses crop up weekend after weekend after weekend.
Well, see, I already have a catering license.
Huh?
I already have a catering license, but we merely would
I
say.
just wouldn't want it to be used there.
That location will not be kept.
But you don't have a catering permit for that location,
That's
and
what
you
I'm
won't
saying.
get one if I know the chief of police at all.
No, we don't want one.
I've been giving run runners their allotment of catering permits.
To off premise.
Well, I think they, if I'm not mistaken, I'd have to go back and look at them, but they're elsewhere on the premises outside the license.
Oh, that's not in the, because they don't have a
Second
duplicate.
floor or something like that.
None.
I'm trying to be fair.
No, none for us. We don't want them. We're gonna be tearing and ripping and tearing and building. We're not looking to be
When they hit
open
their
until we're
12,
open.
they're done, but they have to just.
You know, Mr. Burnett and Mr. Caldwell, I hope we're able to get this worked out. Nothing would make me happier than to see that type of business in that location. It's gonna take a little bit of work for us to get there. Understand that if we do have on the agenda a resolution of protest, that will be there for Tuesday night, and discussion. And there is an attachment to it, which is the attachment that goes into it, because we're basically under this understanding that even if we protest it, the ABC board is still going to transfer the license.
Should what?
The ABC board will still transfer the license. Is our understanding. So that's just conversation. And so what the attachment of this basically is, if that does happen, basically would line out what you offered to do anyway. We want to see it shut down for 6 months. So there's some work to do, because, you know, honestly, the issue that we're dealing with down here that came out at our last meeting is run runners really put it all in focus for it, but we got other issues downtown. There's some operators that aren't operating quite honestly as well as they could be. And we're concerned, a lot of citizens not feeling safe, comfortable going downtown. And so, matter of fact, the chief even made a comment at a meeting that we had, that he's concerned about losing that element of safety element in downtown. So this has nothing to do with you, Mr. Burnett, so much as it is a message coming from the assembly that we're just not going to tolerate that kind of activity from operators downtown. So Mr. Flynn is back late tomorrow night. I think you've got a fair amount of work to do between now and Tuesday night. It's pretty obvious that you're out working on that. I'll be at the meeting tomorrow morning, as well as you being there for the Downtown Business Partnership. And but I can tell you the last thing that I want, and I think I can speak on behalf of the entire body, is a closed up building sitting downtown. We want a vibrant downtown, and closing businesses isn't what does it. But we also want one safe for citizens of this community to go down to. And quite honestly, that type of operation, there will be a step in the right direction. But by the same token, the message that I think Mr. Flynn and Mr. Harmon and myself, the co-sponsors on this, are trying to deliver are to all the operators downtown, that if you don't provide the type of business and oversight that you need to, there's going to be consequences for those actions. So nothing at all to do with you, Mr. Burnett. Type of operator that we would love to see come downtown. It appears from what Mr. Coffey's saying, there's been a change in what the downtown businesses are saying, because up until this point, they've been very strong protest this license. So as you continue to work that and things move in hopefully maybe in a different direction here. But I understand where Mr. Flynn is, because all of us have had that particular operation come to us on 3 occasions and tell us everything that they were going to do was to totally turn that operation around, and they have not done one up there. So, you know, it's kind of, we're at that old adage, who was what, shame on us, and more than that, shame on you. But
Could I add one thing, Ernie?
absolutely.
And that would be, it would be okay with me, and it wouldn't be 6 months, but it'd be close to it. The key to the economic vitality of downtown really is the famous 4 months, and it's June, July, August, and September. And I wouldn't have a problem if you're trying to send a message that the other people, the other bar owners, that they're having problems, we know who they are. If we made it that we couldn't open until June 1, and if you closed it down on the 20th, that'd be 5 months and a couple of weeks. That'd be close enough, but about the 7th, and I know this because of, not really my uncle, but I've known him since I was 10, Bob Halpro, who owns Avis. Around the 7th to the 10th of June, he'll have 1,000 cars on the lot, and by the 15th, they're gone. So that's when the tourists hit, and if you go downtown now, as you will see at lunchtime on that corner, you have businesses that are closed up for this winter because there isn't a lot of business down there now. So that we need to be open in order to meet our financial figures, in order to spend the money that we're going to have to remodel it, to put what's good in there for the city, and to be able to operate it when the people are there. So if that would help you at all.
And let me add one thing. You want to send a message? Shut them down. You don't want to send a message? Let them operate till February 28th, which is the last day for filing a new application. The protest won't be heard by the ABC board until March or April. And even if they upheld your protest, he's got 5 or 6 more months of operation. Now, the message for the people who don't operate downtown, and I'm not sure we really do know who are the bad operators. I've been through a situation in September where some of the people at the ABC board came out after a bunch of operators, one of whom had 1 NOV in an entire year. Another one of whom violated a smoking ordinance at a time when they were in litigation with the city, so on and so forth. So let's not judge this, and let's understand that the problem that exists with a multitude of bars is a larger problem than just one bar. And my point is, send a message. I'll tell you what, John Petit, the Grahams, Denny French, Stockler over at Platinum Jacks, all these guys, when they see you guys start from Thanksgiving to the 2nd, 3rd week in January, and you shut a problem place down, there's your message. There's your message, not a prolonged agony of maybe litigation and things that drag on and on and on. Shut them down. That's your best remedy right there. And that's the best message you can send. There's consequences, folks, and here they are. Rum Runners is out of business. And do they care whether Rum Runners sells the furniture, fixtures, and equipment, or the license, or leases the old premise? Nobody cares about that. That's the technical stuff. Shut them down. Shut them down on the 20th of December. There you go.
Okay, yeah, just to follow up to that, I'll follow up with legal. I think we're talking about 2 different things here. What you're proposing is you're voluntarily going to shut the doors.
No, you're going to tell them you're going to protest their
I
license.
understand that, but it's my understanding when we do that, we have to give them a public hearing, and that's a 21-day notice, and there has to be a public hearing to shut them down.
Well,
That
why?
we can't arbitrarily.
If the guy agrees?
If he agrees,
That's
Well,
what
he
I'm
has to.
saying.
That's the whole point. If he doesn't, we're walking away. You won't see us no
Yeah,
more.
but that's all I'm saying, is we're talking about where the current owner agrees that they can do it immediately. We can't just arbitrarily do that to any operator now.
I understand that.
But what we're saying is, Ernie, is, okay, Mr. Gallo, we're gonna let this license transfer, okay? Instead of us continuing on legally and try to take it from you. If you close the doors and it does not operate from the 20th of December on, if he agrees to that, I think that's a pretty good message to everybody downtown.
I understand. I'm just saying, when we're talking about delivering a message, the message isn't we can just shut anybody down on a moment's notice. process, but under what you're proposing, that scenario is a voluntary shutdown.
With a gun to his head, a $250,000 gun.
I have
Thank you.
one question, and perhaps it might be best for legal, but Mr. Jackson.
I really appreciate that, Mr. Chairman. Just, for clarity, okay, for me, for clarity, because I meet with anybody who wants to meet with me, okay? And I met with two gentlemen on this issue about a month ago, and that's the two that are on the table, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Then, last week, I met with Stephanie Powers. Are you familiar with that name?
Stephanie Powell.
Yeah, and she had a proposal.
Oh, she's somebody,
So that's on the.
SNS,
Yeah. so
yeah,
that-
I talked to her and,
So that's off the table. I just want some clarity here.
yes, ma'am.
Okay, so the only thing that's on the table right now is what you have presented.
And that comes
Okay,
from
that's-
Mr. Gallo, these were people with whom he has a relationship. They were employees.
Right,
or-
right, and I know, but my only question was, I just wanted to be clear
Yes,
on
ma'am.
the two that are on the table. And the only thing that's on the table right now is your proposal. Thank you.
Everything we know, that's absolutely true. I don't know if somebody else has done something, but
But,
what we've
yeah,
been
I
told is
mentioned the
just
name.
what you said.
Okay, and I appreciate that.
Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
My comment and question, so we can, I promise everybody we'll try to do a quick meeting, I'm sorry, Chief, for the delay. Thank you for your speech. Rather important to stay here and do it, but anyway, it's okay. Number one, perhaps it's a legal question, because you have a offer, for lack of better terms. I don't know when this transaction, because you're talking about a long-term lease, infinitely with an agreement, potentially lease with an option to buy. You're talking about transferring an application transfer to the state ABC for the liquor license, which again comes into our wheelhouse whether we can protest or not.
Yep.
You're asking us to upfront pass a resolution, non-protesting the transfer under the terms that you presented. Am I correct?
Two things, non-protesting
Transfer the
renewal.
renewal.
And then when we come in front of you, assuming that all of the conditions of any transfer are met, you know, it's the same thing you do if people, it had nothing to do with Roma, all those conditions, things like the city property taxes are paid, there's no liens on the license, there's no felons in the Burnett's business, and all of that, then we would say that you would approve it unless you found something that didn't meet the standard criteria.
Mr. Coffey, what would, I'm just doing hypothetical here, what would happen if this non-protest or renewal with the Gallows on this liquor license occurred? They agreed to shut down on the 20th of December, and December 30th, they decide, screw it, we're gonna let it run because we're not gonna get a protest, and we're gonna let it run through February or whatever, and we're gonna open back up on the 30th or 31st, you know, a hell of a New Year's Eve party. What would happen? Where do we stand on December?
You're gonna protest the license. That's what you have the authority to do.
But we've already agreed
And
not to
you, I
protest.
know, no. Well, he's agreed not to operate. So you got to breach a contract at a minimum, but you also have a representation made early that he agrees to it, and I think you could probably force him shut in fairly short order. And then he's going to lose everything, and we're gone. It's done. I don't believe Abraham Gallo or Basilio Gallo, who have other licenses and other businesses in this town, are going to agree to something and then turn and change their mind in a week. I don't know, and I don't represent him. Let's make that clear. In fact, I used to represent that outfit. When I found out how they were doing it, I got away from that
You
outfit.
and I have had that conversation.
Yes, I know. But the point being, well, here's how I would do it. If I were writing the resolution, and I'm happy to give a draft to anybody who wants it, Dennis or whoever, I would try to put things like immediately entitled to an injunction preventing the operation of the business based on a breach of contract and public safety, or something along those lines. And let's, I'll sit down and start working on every single aspect that I can think of that protects you from a mind change from them, so that it would be really silly to try to open for a few days and lose a $250,000 license, and put their whole credibility and as good operators of licenses at risk. But I understand what you're saying.
And Mr. Covey, I agree, and I know Mr. Basilio Gallo very well. I don't know Mr. Abraham Gallo much at all, but I have had conversations with him over the phone. I have no doubt that they're not men of their word. If they agree to a contract, and if they were to pull a fast one, obviously you could walk, and there's a whole lot of things that they have implications. If you hear what I'm saying, I guess there's a little area that I think. The other concern is, and I have actually had conversations, and you know me, I walk around and I talk to several operators in the downtown area. And some of them are watching this assembly to see what we're going to do. And it tends to, I've had a sleight of hand conversation where a guy says, you know, if you guys can't take action on something this egregious, you know, why should any of us follow the rules, so to speak? Obviously, there's consequences. NOVs, there's potential conditional use restrictions. I mean, there's all sorts of things we can do. But there's this anecdotal commentary of, you know, and I know they're probably just talking out their wazoo when they say it, but the bottom line is that there is, Mr. Hall made the comment, and you've heard me say it on the record, I'll say it again. I don't care if the businesses make a million or trillion, and I hope you employ a lot of people in Anchorage and everybody gets well. But I don't want that operator, I don't care at any expense, period. I don't care if it's in downtown or in the So I guess I'd rather have a little more control, and I've got to do some reflecting. Mr. Flynn had asked, and of course, my name gets listed on any resolution with alcohol licenses, so as the chair of the public safety committee. I haven't committed to anything, and that's why I think it's fair that you have your hearing and you have your say to give the proposal. And I think it's very fair for us to give due diligence to consideration of what we propose. So,
And in anticipation of remote contingencies, I'll prepare something based, because I've had so many years of experience around licensing, obviously. So, and I'll send it to Dennis Wheeler, and he can share it with all of you, and I'll make it as tough as I can possibly imagine to legally prevent the mind change or some slippery way to get out from under some deal. As I said, I don't believe it'll happen, but let's put it in the resolution. And so,
I asked this last question because me and Mr. Trainer said his were listening. My last question is, I presented this to the three gentlemen that proposed last night. If this license is not available for that location, what's your plan on it? If that license is there now for transfer, what would be your second plan, or is there?
Well, I'd probably just walk away. Because then I don't know what Gallo's gonna do at that point, and Basilio's gonna do, and Abraham's gonna do. But right now, we have them in a tight contract with, it was in the newspaper.
Sure.
Exactly what the terms and conditions were, everything was. There's nothing hidden here. It's all out in front of the public. It's on the front page of the newspaper, so.
It's just a fair question, I just asked.
Yeah,
the gentleman.
yeah, no, but, no, you know, so I would have, yeah, and then the building's gonna get shut down. It's gonna make things even worse for not only for the city, but for the Gallows.
We did that before shutting the building down, called the King Building, that went vacant for 10 years. But Dan, just give us what you can do to make this work. You're the man when it comes out the license. I don't care who the city attorney is. We rely on you as an assembly. Just tell us where reality is. But no matter what side of the street you're on, you tell us where reality is. Remember something called the Paradise Lounge? Remember all the fights we had on that? And it was terrible. And one was lying to us, we finally called the task on it, we appreciate that.
well, here's the situation that you might also consider. If you look at Title 21 and the provisions 21, I think it's, I won't cite it, I'll be wrong in my head. But the conditional use is your bailiwick. Right now, there's two problems with the conditional use, because I reviewed it. In fact, when I was talking to Jennifer about the VFW thing out south, she asked me to. So we reviewed the conditional use. And, for example, the conditional use can be modified at the request of the person who holds that land use permit. Well, it should be, the law should say that if you face circumstances, the municipality can modify the conditional use. That's number one. And it ought to also have revocation. Now, you gotta go due process for a revocation of a land use permit, but you ought to have that power and that authority. And that would probably handle 95% of the cases. You know, probably if you could do modifications and revocation of that, you would be far down the road when you face a problem. The other thing is that there's no way that you're ever going to be able to move faster than 40, 30, 45 days, just because of first, every 2 weeks you meet, plus you got to give notice, plus you got to have a public hearing, and all of that. So no matter what, you're faced with that. But let's see if we can do what you all have asked, and that's tighten up a resolution that makes it tight as a tick and gives you every advantage in the situation. There we go.
Anything else?
We appreciate the time. Thank you very
Also,
much.
before we go, Mr. Trina, you could explain, because you handled 90% of the liquor licenses, how many are available out there?
Well, I got a call yesterday about someone who wants to sell one on Muldoon Road, but they want to sell the land and the building and the license. And I basically told the person that they're not going to, if they want to sell and get out of the business, you're going to have to sell the license, because that building, you're not going to get, it's not going to happen quickly. So that's the only one I know of, and we have, and they may not sell it separate from the land and building. And the other one that the other information is, right now in our office, we have 3 national companies, 2 of which operate here already, and 1 which wants to come in here, and they are looking to open restaurants, and they can't find any. So, and I can't find any, and which is unusual, because I usually, you make your rounds and you find them, but not. Now, that could change tomorrow, guys. I mean, there's businesses that come and businesses that go, but today, as of yesterday, there's nothing that I know of other than that, I think it's the Club 210 on Muldoon Road.
And there's a couple of really nice nationals. One of those I'm working with, as you well know, that can't find a license, that the public would love to have here, right? That's how tight it is. So,
Thank you very much, I appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. We thank you for your time.
Thanks.
Ms. Conley, we have a question about recreational licenses that we're going to discuss. If you've got a moment.
Oh, I'll stay, sure. I'm happy
Please,
to.
not anything.
Yeah, we'll run Burnett off. Let him go back to his.
Okay, again, Mr. Chairman,
Talk to you
I'm sorry.
later.
I'll see you in the morning.
This agenda is in error, so don't follow the. Chief Pachusa, you came in first, sorry. If you want, again, beginning of this, I know I have a question reference, you had mentioned before, you got the funding, if you'd like to start moving the county and potentially start opening applications in January or February.
Yep, and I haven't got the official green light from my boss to do that yet. I'll lay it out for him probably at our meeting on Thursday. And that would just be the first step. We would start in January, hopefully bringing somebody on in September. I know it's a long window, but by the time you jump through all the hoops, make it happen, all the things that have to happen, that's gonna be what we're looking at.
Possibility of summer academy?
No, it will probably be fall before we'll actually be able to bring them on.
Someone else in the room is kind of interested as well, perhaps. Is it, now these will be firefighter medics, or both?
That, that's one of those things that's been all over the board. I'm gonna, the thing that I saw that seemed to work the best for us is to say, present with a medical certificate, and we'll teach you how to be a firefighter. We're better at doing that, teaching people how to be firefighters. It's more important to bring somebody who has some medical training and teach them our way of firefighting versus the other way around, when they've learned firefighting someplace else, because it's really an individual type of thing. So that worked the best. Now, whether or not I'm going to be able to do that, I don't know. There's been talk that we cannot put any stipulations on it, that we just have to say 18 driver's license, come on, and we'll screen. I would argue against that, but
What's that restriction on those beds or?
this is right now it's just all in the rumor stature or the rumor field. But my understanding is that if you start putting, you have to have this, you have to have that to walk in the door, or it closes the door to a lot of people. And there are groups that are saying you can't close the door to these other people. You gotta take all comers. Right now it's just cheap talk, but it is well, not cheap talk, but it's talk. But it is a hurdle that I see on the horizon.
If that becomes reality, let us know which ways I'd like to pursue that.
Okay. Yeah. And don't get me wrong, actually, when we've thrown it open to the world, I'll be honest with you, that's when we tend to get the best candidates. Because it doesn't matter what you're doing, 18 driver's license, that's a pretty wide swath of society. And you get some hard chargers and go-getters, you get the hard chargers and go-getters, you can train them to do anything. But training somebody to be a paramedic is just not within our abilities as a department. More than 1 or 2 at a time. It's expensive and it's slow and it's not going to happen. So there is all those possibilities out there. But yes, we are looking at hiring. Just so we can.
I'm sure you have quantified occupation qualities and all that kind of stuff, so you can fair enough pose it. The desire to be doesn't necessarily equal ability, so.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
And just a real quick, medic rigs, any updates on the ones that?
Our problem children, they're still problem children, but right now they have 3 people up here from the company working 12-hour days to get them fixed and make them right. And that, I would think that that's what's going to happen, and it will happen in short order. It will probably happen, we were told it will happen before the beginning of the new year. These guys are getting it done. So
This is
maybe
all their expense.
this is all their, on their dime, all of it.
How
Yeah.
long have they been? When did they arrive?
They arrived 4 days ago, and literally they've been working. Those guys aren't messing around. They're working 12-hour days, getting it done. 12-hour days, half hour for lunch. Hard workers. Yeah.
Last night, big fire, any injuries, any total loss, I understand, on the house?
I didn't get a brief on the loss, but it from the talking I've done, it was pretty significant when they pulled up, probably about 50% involved.
And this is the same area, I understand, no hydrants, very hard, getting like a tender or tanker.
Yep, used all our 4 tenders in town during the operation.
So very important to keep those tenders operational.
I think so.
I know you've
Very,
got a
it's
challenge.
very, it is very difficult to work without them. I mean, I understand it when you look at the department and you look at the runs for apparatus and those sort of things, boy, those tenders leap right out at you as being underutilized. But it's like the fire extinguisher hanging on the wall. I bought more fire extinguishers for my house than I've ever used and probably ever will use. But when you need them, you need them.
If you wouldn't mind, sir, by the first quarter of our revision, we need to make a decision on the funding for that. I think the tender 9 is the one.
Tender 9,
You're
yeah.
going to be managing. You just let us know what that cost could be. If it looks like we're going to be able to meet it, the objectives to the end of the year, next year, without it, fine, but if it looks like we need it, I think we'll need it.
Okay.
And then other words, other concern is arson. I understand that I'll talk to you offline, and let me have a meeting with you about arson.
That is an interesting situation we've got there. And
In Muldoon, we got one building.
I don't know
burned 3 times.
if it's just that since we have our investigator and we are, forced to look at it more closely, that we're noticing these patterns, or if in fact we are having a significant, statistically significant increase in arsons. It is a
Apparently,
problem.
the CFR, the UCR reports are showing an increase. That's one of the ones that went drastic. And in Muldoon, like I said, we had one building that was getting 3 different times.
Yeah. Yep.
We got somebody out there who needed, and with one person, it's really difficult.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yes, it is.
All right, anything else, Chief?
No, you mentioned New Year's Eve.
Oh, yes.
We're probably plan on beefing up our staffing, not tremendously, but at least 1 extra ambulance, maybe 2, if we can swing it. Probably just do it for that second 12-hour period from about 9.
Can you let us know if there's any fireworks related, either fires or injuries, as soon as possible after the first, by the day we find things?
Okay. Yeah, we'll flag it.
Chief? Any big issues? I know that I threw on there the keys issues that keeps coming up in the paper every day here lately, we're getting more and more about this week. But beyond that, I guess we'll start with the easy questions. Is there anything of concern or consideration for the department's challenge for the end of the year? I guess New Year's Eve.
I confess, Paul, I looked at your agenda about 15 minutes before I got here. I don't know what patrol has planned or anything for New Year's. I mean, I could assume that leave would be pretty tough to get. But I don't have specific plans on that. I can get that to you.
We know we don't have fireworks available for personal use this year. That'll
No, they're available.
Well, they're not expired. They're legally not.
There is a difference. This town will light up again on New Year's Eve.
I'll tell you that I am watching the budget closely. Last time I looked, we were projected to be $32,000 in the good at the end of this year. And we've had a few fallouts since I last looked. So what I'm saying is there's not a whole lot of money left in the budget to bring a whole lot of people in for $38.52 left in my labor line by the time we get there. So, it's tight, but I think we're gonna be okay, but it's tough.
Just briefly on the fireworks, though, can you let us know so that we can tell constituents if we start getting calls? Because I know is the plan air locate if the officers are available to go, or are you gonna dispatch an officer? How's it? Can you explain? I know in years past it's been a little bit.
Well, my understanding is lately we just put out locates and officers respond to those locates if they're not tied up on a call. That's what we've been doing, from what I understand.
So if you can let us know too, if there were any firework calls that, somebody got ticketed or any major, I guess, exception of the rule. Most of the time we get locates, you may get 50 calls or 100 calls or whatever, and that'd be easy.
I can have it flagged so that we can track how many calls we get from the center, whether we turn those into dispatch calls or we turn them into locates. Still a call coming in, somebody saying the fireworks, but I can count that.
I'm sure we get like that one guy that blew his fingers off one time, you know, get calls like that. You get a call like that. You know, things that stand out. And then on the keys case, anything that our department or are we still, I understand the Samantha cases over, but are there any potential cases in Anchorage that, outside of the ones that Eastman Best plus, you know, we keep hearing more about the almost shot a cop, the almost shot a couple. Is there anything that you can say or tell us that we looking in for any other?
We've been quite forthcoming with information in the last week, so much so that maybe we've even put out too much information for the appetite of some folks in the groups. So I think we're about done putting out proactive information. I'm sure we'll still respond to questions in the meeting and so forth. But we don't suspect Keys to be responsible for any other deaths in Alaska. We don't have any information on that. He's told us no. We haven't caught him in any lies. While he hasn't told us everything, nothing he's told us have we been able to disprove. We haven't been able to prove everything he said, but we've never been able to disprove anything he said either. I guess is what I'm trying to say. And he has told us there is nobody else in Alaska. And we don't have any evidence out there to suggest otherwise. So we know he was trying, didn't get around to didn't pull anything off, but I don't think there's any other stories here. Our strategy for the last week or so has been to try to, normally we don't talk about this stuff. We don't talk about it during the investigation, and by now we would be talking about it because people would get this information from trial, from witness examinations and cross-examinations and so forth. We're not going to have a trial now, so our only mechanism to try and wrap these cases up, what we suspect, is to get people around the country to fill in the gaps for us. And so that's why the public media was here the last week or so. But I guess that was enough.
So we're not part of this greater task force, which is going to go out fair information.
No, in fact, we were down to only one person already because the amount of work for the APD on this has been diminishing for months as the focus shifted from, he's got representation on Samantha's is limited. We can't talk to him about Samantha anymore. We can talk to him about other things. And so that's the Fed, mostly because of the issues out of state. The only reason we kept somebody in is because we had a floor with him, and sometimes our guys don't want to talk to him. So as a favor to the FBI, we kept somebody involved. But really, we're needing to back ourselves out of it because it's really not Anchorage work. Now that he's dead, there's really not much reason for us to be involved. Our involvement since his demise has really been to explain our part of this investigation, to part of the media campaign to get the nationwide attention. I think we've got it. The leads are coming in. FBI's getting lots and lots of leads are coming in from around the world. So the FBI will work on it for years.
Like, speaking for myself, I know I've heard from several coffee platforms that were, at first, they were thinking it was somebody that was typically targeting that kind of environment. And
Typically not, we use mostly trailheads.
Exactly, that's, it seems that it's, so there's a relief there going on, but still I get calls from you, can you make sure that the road crews come and clear out so that there's no big berms, blocking their visibility? And of course, I do everything to try to be diligent in that regard and concerned, but and certainly even for visibility for robberies or other reasons, it's a safe thing to do, but nothing to lose. The bottom line is that as disturbing as the whole thing was, it's less unnerving for people that work in that business and industry to think that there's somebody out there. Not that there couldn't be, but there's, in this case, it's not real target.
He wasn't just targeting baristas, I mean, he did that one time, but I'm not aware of a barista angle in any of the other out-of-state cases. I also plan on posting, taking applications for the year.
Oh, good, that's good.
I mean, I was going to ask George to do it. I'll follow your lead. I don't expect George to object. I'll probably run into other hurdles. Factions, yeah. But,
Question it out, I know it takes a good amount of time to get your application and your academy run through this, but duration, obviously, from there.
Slots.
well, we'll start taking applications. We'll take as many as we, I mean, we need 15 applications. Well, 28. Ideally, we probably hire 30, anticipating somebody not going to show up. And it happens every time. We hire 28, and the day before the academy, 2 of them call and say, they got my wife, and I'm not. So, we probably hire over what we really need.
You take someone with medical training, local guy, plays hockey. I mean, know somebody.
And 66 years old.
We're looking really carefully at how the recruiting went last time and what the success rates of different kinds of people were in the system. We're going to be changing some things and retention of folks.
Well, next subject then, and it's the last, and I promise that we probably went a little earlier, thanks for the presentation, is recreational licenses under Title IV. And Chief, this may be a concern, maybe you have an answer for this too. Mr. Hall had a issue that came before, someone in his district, change. Briefly, through Title IV, recreational licenses, site license, recreational site license. And in this case, it's Minnesota Billiards. Made a request to have a beer and wine license on site for a recreational event. And under Title IV, there's a recreational event license, recreational site license. And for a lot of guys, we couldn't figure out how a billiard ball might fit into this category. And so we're trying to
Well, I think the reality is we, the Assembly, have been okaying these for some time, the realization of what it was. The only reason it came to my attention was I had a community council come up, they were protesting it at Minnesota Billiards. They don't want anything there, but they said, so what is a recreational license? And I honestly didn't have a clue, so I had Amanda write it down. She said, yeah, when these first started coming, I made some inquiries myself because it's pretty clear there for baseball games, softball games, that type of event, you can use the license an hour before and an hour after. So I was baffled as how a billiard parlor open 7 days a week at a number of hours would be eligible to give a recreational site license. So with that, I went in and did some checking on it. These in yellow are the ones that already exist in Anchorage. The George Sullivan Arena makes sense. That would be a sporting event. Subway Sports Center, maybe Diamond Bowl. That one's when you kind of wonder about Alaska Raw Berry products. The Garden, the Summit, which is a Alaska club operation. Beluga Billiards over in my neighborhood. I remember when that came up, they came into the community council with a beer and wine license is what they're referring to it as. And then the Glacier Pilots, which also makes logic, that would be tied. So it's just kind of a heads up to us that something that we should probably think about and look at and, you know, have a question. Now, Amanda pursued this with the ABC board and asked, and said, well, it doesn't seem to make sense. And they said, well, we take a little looser approach to it than that when we issue these. But the reality is, at the end of the day, we're doing conditional use for them either. So I'm definitely, if the Minnesota Billiards is on our agenda for approval this month, I've got to look at it. I'd like to have you pull it over and over so we can have a discussion about it. And it's also the fact that both of the community councils over there, at St. Bernard, they've already written a letter, but I told them to prepare a resolution in opposition to it. And the Turnigan Community Council, who they're just across the street from, are going to do a resolution supporting them in their resolution to that particular item.
Is a recreational site license a different kind of permanent license?
That's how they're.
Because it's not like something I'm seeing that's like a theater
It is.
or something like that.
Shoot cannon is permanent. It's not a event only.
Okay,
It's
so
a
somebody's
permanent
applied to the
license.
ABC board, they've got this license.
And if you think about the Mulcahy where they play, the pilots play, they've got a game schedule, an hour before the game and an hour after, and that's it. And they don't have to apply every single time for their 50-game
It's a
schedule.
biannual, you get $800 biannual.
You were looking at me, does this have something to do with police department?
Well,
No,
I'm
Minnesota
having trouble
Billiards.
making the connection of, like, have I been doing something here?
No, Minnesota Billiards,
No.
you're probably familiar with Minnesota Billiards has had a history of having some brouhahas, some shots fired, in and outside. It's been a problem location, and frankly, it's been an all-age club for a billiard hall. They could have kids as young, it started with problems getting them to get kids underage past curfew out of there by curfew time. And there was some discussions and such, and then there have been just nothing but problems over there. I mean, I haven't heard of them in the news lately, but I don't know if they've got to change the ownership or anything. But what brings to mind is that these are places that I would think that if you're gonna have, like the ball game, if you're gonna have a billiard tournament from 8 to midnight, you know, and you have a beer and wine license 8 to midnight, the assumption is everybody on the premise will be 21, and it'd be CAMS card certified, blah, blah, blah. And there would be a conditional use requirement at that property. To my knowledge, they don't have that. When they open it up, there's an open up this door.
Well, and there's a whole host of problems. A rec site license, if you look at it, the Sullivan Arena, wet side, dry side.
Right.
Mulcahy Stadium, you're not supposed to have your beer on this certain place, or and so on. And the other problem is that when you get these, you know, you don't do the conditional use for anything other than beverage dispensary. So the conditional use is an administrative one, so the only chance you have is protesting. And there's no regulations in the ABC board, in chapter 13 of the regulations, that has anything to do other than what the statute itself says, and that's 4 lines. 1 hour before, hour after, and then some examples. But the examples are the kinds of things that you could use to make your determination, because a billiard parlor doesn't qualify.
I'll read it to you here. The site, 4.11.210 recreational site license actually gives the recreational sites, and it says it includes a location where baseball games, car races, hockey games, dog sled racing events, or curling matches are regularly held during a season. That's it.
Mr. Hall got that from the.
But it sounds to me like a billiard parlor or bowling alley, that's just their business. They just do that every day. It's not waiting on a particular game.
No, they're not. And that's all it was. Quite honestly, when it come to my attention, it was kind of like, we need a heads up to the body that we look when we're doing these, if it's saying beer and wine, or if it's saying a recreational site.
Yeah, first I'd seen and heard of it, I honestly didn't.
Then what are the cost of these licenses?
$800 a year.
Biennial.
Oh,
Biennial.
Biennial.
yeah, way money. Well, they're just issuing.
You got the entire list.
There's no problem getting them from a.
No
Is there any
limitation.
problem
There's
with new
limited
ones
number.
being created? Because on some licenses, it's 11.
Well, it's 1 per 1,500 population. So
And
you could have 500 of them.
Right, and it comes back to the conversation we've been having. Apparently, beer and wine license are getting to where, like, you know, I don't know what the limit is on those.
1 per 1,500.
Okay.
But
So-
you've got to be a bona fide restaurant that'll sell food.
Right. you know, it's kind of like, there's an invite.
Concern of mine.
The good news is, if you're aware, then your discretion can come into play, because you know the difference between a ball field and a hockey rink and an arena kind of thing, and an ongoing day-to-day business, and that'd be the distinction I'd write.
Thanks, Bruce Cox. for taking
Thank
my-
you, happy to help.
Yes.
If I help, maybe I didn't.
I just, that was
Thank you,
just a
Dan.
heads up.
Well, I would say that business is taking care of this way, Jackson, isn't it?
I gave up the last one this morning.
Ms. Lawrence, with training. I think I'm done. Chief, do you have anything you'd like to finish?
What's your interest?
I just want to the process of how to do meetings. That's all I do.
Yes.
Other than money, somebody gets-
I've seen you, but I didn't know.
You know, I don't think I got anything.
This is that, forget that.
That's the last one again.
We're what is this?
Just a private lawyer.
Okay.
No.
I recognize the name well.
I'm not on the, that was